Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you are doing well, staying safe, and taking care of those closest to you. And if anybody is in the New York City area who happens to be hearing this before July 19th, I do hope that you're able to come out and see my band Bright Ugly open for Calling All Captains, Goalkeeper, and What Makes Sense at Sovereign, which is an incredible venue in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I hope to see you guys there. I can't wait to play with Goalkeeper and What Makes Sense again. I love sharing the stage with those guys, all friends of the show. And I'm also looking forward to sharing with you today's episode with my newest friend of the show, who I have to say, this conversation is one of those. I really felt like me and this guy are kindred spirits. My guest on the show today is musician, college professor, and entrepreneur Rishi Bahl. Rishi is the lead guitarist and vocalist in the band Eternal Boy, who put out an incredible new album last year called Bad Days Are Over. If you like pop punk, if you like early 2000s pop punk specifically, and specifically if you're into Drive Thru Records bands, Bad Days Are Over is going to be your jam by the band Eternal Boy. So make sure you listen to that. In addition to fronting Eternal Boy, Rishi is also a college professor, and he is, you might know him well from the as being the founder of the Four Chord Music Festival, which takes place outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the 8th iteration of which will be occurring this September 9th and September 10th. There are 2 days with an incredible lineup of not only hugely influential punk bands from the 90s and 80s, but as well as the early 2000s up till today. Pretty much, and I said this to him, I think he went through my iPod and found one of my playlists and just booked all of those bands. So it's a incredible festival with a great lineup, and I was curious, what drives someone to produce and put on a music festival, as well as to do all of this other stuff. And this conversation, the things that we were hitting on were just so revelatory. I was very inspired after leaving. After hanging up with this guest. So Rishi's an incredible dude with a lot of very insightful things to say, and is really for the majority of us in the creative field who are going to have some sort of other jobs or some kind of other outlets, the idea of being able to do all these things and be a well-rounded person, I personally find inspiring as at the age I'm at now. And there's just a lot of great stuff to dig into, and there's a lot of bands that we are going to that we're definitely going to have similar positive thoughts on. A lot of great Drive Thru Records talk on this one as well. So guys, if you are a pop punk fan, and if you're looking to see a great independent music festival, Four Chord Music Festival, again, the 8th iteration will be Friday, September 9th and September 10th this year. I want to try to make it out there. I do have my Chemical Romance tickets for the Sunday after, but I'll see what I can what can be done for me from my vantage point here in New York. But it's an incredible lineup, and this is an incredible conversation. And if you enjoyed this, I have hundreds of other episodes that I think you will find interesting as well, and everything is at awesomedisaster.com. But thank you guys so much for listening, and let's talk to Rishi Bahl of Eternal Boy and the founder of the Four Chord Music Festival. The first thing I was thinking I would want to ask you before we got on here, other than I do have to say first off, the new Eternal Boy record, Bad Days Are Over, is fucking amazing. I really liked it.
Oh wow! Well, thank you very much. That's That's normally on these podcasts we talk about Eternal Boy at the end. So I appreciate you bringing it up right up front. Yeah, it's a labor of love being in a band and kind of doing the, I don't want to say part-time rock star type thing, but it certainly was a lot went into that record during the pandemic and so on and so forth. So I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Like I did a little recording at home during the pandemic and I just talked to Dustin from With the Punches who basically their recording session started in March of 2020 right as lockdown happened. So I can only imagine some of the struggles and what went into recording that record uh during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, Dustin's awesome. I know Dustin from from With the Punches, but also Keep Flying, obviously as well, who are like best friends. But yeah, we actually it's a similar situation. We recorded everything, like all the music was done up until March, and then March hit, and then ironically enough, that's when I had announced the Four Chord 2020 lineup in
Mhm.
early March 2020. So it was kind of, and to give the trifecta of absolute horseshit, I'm also a college professor. So my music career, my festival career, and academia all kind of went to the wayside, which made everything difficult. But we got through it, and ultimately were able to track the vocals remote, and then you know got back there, finished some stuff, and got it released during the pandemic.
Oh, good. Yeah, oh my God, like you just got like every like the three main parts of your life all got like obliterated. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was bad, but it's all good. We're breathing.
Excellent. That's the important part. And it seems like things are slowly like coming back together. I will say like the guitar tones on this record are phenomenal. Like there's I'm trying to think of a band I want to compare it to, but there's just something even like the distorted guitars, there is such like a clean precision to the recording. It's truly spectacular what was accomplished on this album, dude.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. It's all we have everything to thank to Chris Badami, who is the producer of the record. He's out of New Jersey. He's done, I mean, being in my mid 30s, I've grew up listening to the records that he produced from the Starting Line to the Early November to Alistair to, I mean, a deluge of bands. And I mean, he is unbelievable in what he does. So it's all thanks to him.
Oh yeah, he produced all those bands.
Yes, he did.
That is super super cool because like reading a little bit about the band, and I think if you were going for this on the record, like it really took me back to that being that early 2000s like kid in high school.
Oh
And I
yeah.
told I told Tim this too. I remember like sometimes I would just go blind into like a big box store because we didn't have like small record stores where I grew up. And I knew if I'd never heard of the band before, I knew if it had that yellow arrow on it that it was gonna be great. So all of those like that entire label was so important to me. I'm feeling like maybe was Drive Thru and their bands like really big for you as well.
Oh my God, my friend. You are talking to the biggest Drive-Thru Records fan maybe that ever existed.
Uh
I
huh.
uh I try to explain to like people younger at shows and like obviously we have Pure Noise and there's some labels now that are doing some cool stuff, but like
Mm-hmm.
being part of all that, like when I was in middle school and early high school, like I don't know, it just felt like we were part of something that was going to be there forever. And now, unfortunately, it didn't last forever, that world. But
Mm-hmm.
I just absolutely idolize the Drive-Thru Records world. That whole the whole label, the Drive-Thru Records tours, the Drive-Thru Records stage at Work tour, the DVDs. I mean, I lived and died with Drive-Thru Records, and a lot of people know me from that even today. Like a lot of my old friends that I run into or come to the festival, or they're like, "Dude, like you basically just like are trying to do what Drive-Thru did," and I'm like, "Yeah, I am actually."
Oh, and I think that's not a terribly horrible model to follow because that label, like they built like that was like for the early 2000s, like a very strong, like think of from a marketing perspective, brand in this world that you and I kind of operate in. Like if you knew that label, you knew kind of you had a general idea of what the band would sound like and then you could get an idea from the album artwork. Maybe it's a little more melodic, maybe it's slightly heavier but a little bit more melodic, but there was really like a community uh built around like fans of that. And talking to some of the artists, it seems like being on that label kind of had that same feel.
Oh yeah, I mean, even the compilations were called "Welcome to the Family" back in the early 2000s. And I'm guessing you grew up were similar in age. Is that
Yeah, I'm
a safe assumption?
36.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so you grew up. What part of the country did you grow up in?
I my formative years were in Southern Maryland, about an hour south of Washington D.C.
Okay, cool. So yeah, there was a lot going on in Maryland too. I mean, it's just when you talk about community, it's kind of uh, what my MO is, right? I mean, like even today, like I was talking on a podcast last week, and we are talking about how there's like areas in the country where like independent bands in our world, like we know the band, we know the venue, like we know which ones. Like for example, like we're the guys in Pittsburgh that everybody goes to. In Philadelphia, it's the guys in Goalkeeper. In Long Island, it's the guys in Keep Flying and Patent Pending. In Maryland now it's a band called Sharia Moore, who used to be called a band called One Life to Lead. I mean, like it's just like we have that like sense of community, and I think that like us old guys, if I may say,
Uh-huh.
we got that from Drive-Thru. I mean, like in Southern California, it was the homegrown guys. In Chicago, it was Alistair. In
Yep.
Southern Florida, it was Newfound Glory. In Eastern PA, it was the starting line. Like it's just like it made sense to me that world, and that's kind of what I think over the years implicitly I've been kind of trying to mimic, even with the festival, with the band, with the small independent record label, which is Four Chord Music now as well. It's
Hmm.
just kind of following that model, which I appreciate tremendously. That world.
Oh my God! Absolutely. That makes total sense to me. Especially because now you got Alistair playing four chord this year, which is super exciting. I would give my right pinky to see them live again.
Well, come on up, dude. I'll hook you up.
Dude, if I can get out to Pennsylvania, I will absolutely hit you up about that.
Please do. Please do.
um,
It's not an empty invite. I will hook it up.
dude, amazing. I can already tell like you and I are kind of kindred spirits. Well, since we're on this drive through thing for a second before we continue on, if I can ask you, what is your favorite drive through album that maybe flew under the radar initially? Is there any of their releases you've come back to appreciate later?
Oh God, everything up to like right past the early November records, I lived and died by. But I mean, I think that the most underappreciated drive-through band was a band called Homegrown, and the record's called Kings of Pop, which I'm sure you know.
Yes.
Uh, that record, I thought that like when you look at the whole scope of drive-through, you look at like the bread and butter bands like Newfound, and then even originally it was Phoenix TX. That was one of the
Mm-hmm.
original drive-through bands that they had, and then RX Bandits. Like I just thought that Homegrown was going to had the genre continue to flourish the way that it did in the early 2000s, which we obviously came to find that it did not. I think that that would have been that band that would have kind of been the next one for Drive Through. But Kings of Pop for me is just an amazingly underrated record.
Yeah, that record's amazing. I came around to that later. Like I knew like the big songs like You're Not Alone and Kiss Me Diss Me from the DVDs,
Right.
but I came around to that later. I was like this is like to me Kings of Pop kind of bridged the gap between like the skate punk melodic hardcore influenced bands and then what would later evolve into that early 2000s like pop punk sound.
Definitely. That is a great evaluation. And Homegrown like back early, even maybe pre-drive through. I mean, they were touring with Blink and Pennywise, and whenever Blink was doing Dude Ranch. I remember in one of the Urethra Chronicle DVDs for Blink early on, the first one.
Hmm.
Mark was like sitting behind in front of this sign that had this list of bands they were playing with, and Homegrown was the opening band of that particular show in like '97 or '98. So yeah, I do think that it gave birth and allowed like that bridge. And those bridges were so important back then. If you think about the bridge that Tony Hawk made, like the video game soundtrack, the bridge that
Hmm.
bands like Blink did, the band like The Offspring did. I mean, these bridges were what allowed pop punk to flourish and pretty much allow people to make fart jokes for a career. So thank you.
Oh, 100%. That was one of the things that initially like attracted me to Blink other than the fact that their songs are great is that I saw like me and my shithead friends, like the kind of like that was our era of like when we were like making like really super crass jokes about like fucking dogs or whatever. That was like the perfect era of like right before I started like I got older and had somewhat of a voice in my head. It was like, okay, maybe don't say that in this room. Which is I have that voice for comedy right now and social functions, but that was like the perfect time, an era for me to have bands like that, and I think DriveThru really carried on that tradition. I didn't ask any of the bands that I've interviewed that were on DriveThru, but I'll ask you this: what do you think happened to that label? Because they were doing amazing, and then I just feel like they sort of slowly dropped off the face of the earth.
Wow, there's a lot of conflicting stories about what happened. If you really want to get to the heart of it, you got to ask the bands, and I do have a little bit of an inside um, perspective on what happened. But I mean,
Hmm.
essentially, it had a lot to do with Richard and Stephanie that ran the label. There was a lot of I mean, lawsuits that ended up happening. There was a famous one with what's his name, Forrest from Hello Goodbye, that ended
Uh
up
huh.
he ended up winning that lawsuit. There was a lot of stuff like that. I think that they spread themselves too thin in terms of like selling too much of their soul, quote unquote, to the majors. They had an
Hmm.
upstream with MCA and then ultimately with Geffen, which probably diluted them enough that it did it. I mean, it didn't fly. And then the genre changed. I remember the
Yeah.
feeling when we back in the day, I love Taking Back Sunday. I love a lot of those emo bands, but like I hated them then.
Uh huh.
I felt like they were the ones sucking the life out of the pop punk world. Little did I know what was on the horizon with like the 2008s and nines. It got way worse. So, but I think that had a lot to do with the growing and evolving marketplace for music. One, number two, it had to do with the fact that they were a label built off of buying physical records, as most labels were, and
Hmm.
many independents didn't survive that. And I think it had a little bit to do with mismanagement, if I were to give my 2 cents.
Yeah, that I could definitely see that because yeah, once we hit 2002, 2003, that's when we started like tuning our guitars down a whole step and playing in drop D and doing the like shouty post hardcore thing for a little
Oh
while.
yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah, which I liked some of that stuff, but it never really like I could not I wouldn't consume every single band the way I would consume every single band in pop punk. But that's just me. So I hear what you're saying. Like it kind of just stuff started happening, and like there's that sort of like kind of magical moment for a lot of this stuff. And I'll ask you this as well as a festival organizer. I don't know. Do you think like a cross country festival like a Warped or an Ozfest exists in the current climate? I know the pandemic makes a big touring festival like that even more of a non-starter. But is there like as much of an audience for that compared to? It seems like most of the music festivals now, like Four Chord or Riot Fest, are like happen every year, but they happen in one place.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a consortium of not like a formal consortium, but just like a bunch of people that can run festivals who like I talk to and we kind of meet up. And there is that sense. And God bless Sad Summerfest who's trying to do that. They're trying to fill that void, which
Mm-hmm.
if you're not familiar, Sad Summer is kind of this we'll say younger band version of Warp Tour that this year has like Neck Deep and Water Parks
Uh
and
huh.
bands like that. But I personally, when I first started Four Chord, it was at a club. It was at 1,000-person club for the first 4 years, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to take this on the road. Like, I'm going to compete with Warp Tour, even though Kevin Lyman's like my idol and has been one of the only people that have ever helped my band ever. I was like, I'm going to go compete with Warp Tour. And then you're like, once you get to the level I think where Four Chord's at now, it's like, dude, like I can't do this every day for the next 60 shows. I think that the marketplace has shifted yet again, and right now I think we're in a bad place for festivals. I think we're in a bad place for shows in general. I think everybody post pandemic was so excited, and I think
Mm-hmm.
now there is a gross oversaturation of shows and festivals, and it's self cannibalizing each other really. On the same day as Four Chord, I announced Four Chord 5 months in advance. And all of a sudden, Live Nation posts books an exact same genre festival on one of the exact same days, only 4 hours from Pittsburgh, where I have the festival, called the Is for Lovers Festival in Cincinnati, and books,
Oh,
uh, Descendants, which is the day before, which I have them on my day one. They have Newfound Glory, they have Motion City. I mean, we're self cannibalizing each other. So I think that to
uh-huh.
do that across the country, when I'd say 70% of people that go to Ride Fest, 50% of people that come to Four Chord, I can tell you definitively, are not from Pittsburgh.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if the industry or a person has the wherewithal or the stamina to really do that, and which is why I say Sad Summer is in a very interesting position to do that. And there are professionals running that fest. I mean, the best professionals that are in the industry. So if anybody can do it, it's them. But I don't see a demand for it right now. That which is why I moved from day to 2 days. Maybe in the future it's 3 days, something like that.
Gotcha. Where it becomes more of like, oh, we can make a weekend out of it, or make like a weekend trip out of it, kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I do commend Sad Summer for making a go of it. And then, so talking amongst your other festival organizers, so I produce so my experience in producing events is, I produced like an alt stand up show in New York for a couple of years, and I know what goes into just producing like a free show in New York. So I can only imagine organizing several days worth of bands, and not only the logistics, financially, and actual like making sure the day runs smooth. I can only imagine how much hair you pull out every year. So I am curious, what's that voice inside you that's driving you to put on a fest like this?
I mean, again, I always say, being a, maybe we'll get to, I'm a college professor as well. I've got a PhD in marketing,
Uh
but
huh.
like to my students all the time, and I teach an entertainment management course. And I always tell my students say the same thing. They're like, oh, well, like I put this free show on, in my neighborhood for the summer. Realistically, it's the exact same thing. Honestly, it's just scaled at a much higher degree, right? Your risk increases so much. But
Right.
like you're talking about a free comedy festival in New York City, like that is such a similar approach to what Four Chord was. It started off very small. It started off, with I think the first year I saw you at Casey on the podcast, great guy from the
Uh
Wonder
huh.
Years.
Love him.
The Wonder Years played the first, yeah, they played the first ever Four Chord ever. It was in 2015, and it was the Wonder Years, Real Friends, Turnover, Modern Baseball. All of which was a time when the Wonder Years were exploding ish, and
Mm-hmm.
the other bands were kind of feeding up. But like I look back to that, and I look back to what Four Chord is now, and it's really the same thing. I've just gotten a little smarter because I have a thicker skin, based on all of the experiences I've had. But I think the motivating factor for me, everybody always asks me this too, like, is there money to be made? Yeah. Did I lose money many years? Absolutely. I've lost
Mm-hmm.
money on many years. Um, but I think the drive for me is like this internal passion to like create something from scratch. Everything I do, it's like that. Like I come from a family full of medical doctors, like everybody is.
Uh huh.
And, I just don't find the passion the way that they do for their jobs. Like my dad has been a doctor here in Pittsburgh for like the last 40 years. He is just like the most intelligent, smart human being I've ever met, but he
Mm-hmm.
loves what he does in like a passionate way. And I think that for me, I
Yeah.
just have this real innate sense of like, I want to build something from scratch. I want to, even if it fails, like I gave it my all. And that's my driving factor. It really is. I want to make it bigger and better. I want to get the bands that I love, which I did have during the pre-pandemic, which we can probably talk about eventually. But
Uh huh.
it's just the drive of entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial spirit that really, really just gets me excited every day.
Uh huh. There's a kind of rush to like, I pulled it off. Like
Oh yeah.
there's a sort of like that that exhale after the day goes by and everything has been like navigated, all the issues were navigated. There's a certain sort of like, hell yeah, like, and then you high five over that kind of a moment. I relate to that 100%. Because what is a career in show business, broadly speaking, if not building something from zero in the face of everybody so many people telling you no.
Oh, dude, you hit the nail. I got chills you saying that, honestly. I mean, that's that I live for that fuel. I live for the fuel. Not like, oh, I told you so, but like more in the sense like, I mean, I was a very average student growing up. I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's just going back even back in the day. Like I went to the strict private school in Pittsburgh, and like I was like the lowest on the totem pole. Like everybody went to like Ivy Leagues and shit, and I barely made it to college. I remember telling my college counselor, I was like, yeah, like I want to be in a band, and I want to like be a professor. And I remember, I mean, even though like I did terrible in school, I hated school. I don't know why I said that. And she looked at my grades and she looked at my everything. She said, I think you should go to community college and think about just getting an associate's degree at this very prestigious, strict private high school.
Uh-huh.
And that I like don't like want to rub it in her face, but I do want to be like, yo, like, anything is possible. You can't take a small snippet or a small sample size and of somebody, no matter what it is about that person, and kind of apply it to their entire life. But there is some sort of feeling you get when you go home and you put your head on the pillow at 6 in the morning after Four Chord's done. You're like, holy fuck, dude! Like this is so sick. And you know what's really fucked up, dude, is that the next morning I wake up after that, all I can think about is the next one.
Uh-huh. Yep. It's like a
Yeah,
it's like a drug. Like it's just like, all right, I did
yeah.
it. Let's do it. Let's do it again. I I totally get that. If I have a good comedy set, if my band plays a really good set, all I want is, oh, that was great. Let's do it again. What's the next thing? I totally get that. So you went
Hey,
to
what band are you in?
my band is called Bright Ugly. We're sort of
Bright Ugly. Let me write that
yes,
down.
yes, we're actually playing with Goalkeeper next week.
Hell
I,
yeah.
I describe us as like Black Keys meets Black Sabbath with a little punk. Is how
I
I
can't wait,
sell
dude.
it.
I
Um,
can't wait to listen.
oh, thank you, man. So you grew up in Pittsburgh.
That's correct.
Awesome. And this is Pittsburgh. So if we're around the same age, so this is like Pittsburgh early 2000s. I know a ton of great bands have come out of Pittsburgh. Were you active in your scene when you were going to that private high school?
Oh God, yeah. Oh my, I was the only kid. I had purple hair in my private high school. I got suspended for having purple hair. I was going to, I got really into, obviously I was into drive through, but like I got really involved weirdly in like the straight edge world when I was in high school.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
so it got me into a little more hardcore, but dude, I was heavily influenced, particularly by one band that just celebrated their 25th year anniversary here in Pittsburgh this weekend, a band called Punchline. Punchline
Yeah.
essentially Yeah, Punchline essentially set the bar, set the standard, and kind of created the roadmap for a Pittsburgh band on how to, then how to do it, to tour, to write great songs, and to focus on those two things. And you look at what Fueled by Ramen is now as a record label with Paramore and 21 Pilots and all these bands. I mean, Punchline was that band. They were one of those bands that helped create that way for that world. So I was heavily involved in the Pittsburgh music scene before we were called Eternal Boy. I'm actually it's still the same band. We have different members, and obviously we rebranded, but we were a band called the Space Pimps for a
Uh-huh.
very very long time. And we got stuck with the name in high school, and then things kind of picked up and blah blah. So we kept it for too long. But under the Space Pimps, I mean, oh my God, we absolutely took our local scene by storm. And again, we had Punchline come through here. We had Anti Flag come through here. We had the Juliana Theory, another band that was out of Greensburg. So we had a
Uh-huh.
lot of idols and kind of a lot of people to look up to and figure out how to do it through them.
Yeah, and I've talked to Chris, and he tells me back, back in the day when you're like going up to the punk looking kids at the mall with your CD and like giving them the headphones and stuff. Just that sort of like that like strong DIY ethic is just kind of, well, you have to do it at a certain point, but then that's awesome. So you knew like them and Anti Flag and all those guys like when you were like in high school.
Well, I knew. I mean, I knew Punchline was very, very friendly. I knew the Punchline guys. They helped us with our first really big show in Pittsburgh. That set. I mean, one could argue if you look back in the history of Eternal Boys slash the Space Pimps that there was this one moment in the early 2000s that Punchline put us on one of their hometown shows, and that was our starting point, and that really
Hmm.
gave us the lift. But we were fans of Anti Flag. I only got to know Anti Flag um, mildly know them through Four Chord. And then
Hmm.
the Juliana Theory guys, once the Juliana Theory broke up, they joined a bunch of bands with all of our homies. It was very, very nice to know that you'd go to a hometown show, and Pittsburgh was just booming at that point. We were bursting at the seams. You would play uh, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Allegheny County, which is the county that Pittsburgh is in, right? Normally,
Hmm.
you don't play your city, every 3 times a weekend. You
Right.
play 3 shows at VFWs, and you couldn't move. There was too many people at every show.
Wow.
It was just the best time ever, and that was that drive-through world. People were coming
Uh-huh.
with Atari shirts and Starting Line shirts and drive-through shirts and Vagrant shirts and Saves the Day record. I mean, like I get. I wish there was a way I could like talk to 22-year-olds now and be like, here is what it was like, and get them to understand how unbelievable it was. And it really was that every show, everywhere we went. Then the Spacens started playing outside of Pittsburgh, and we went to State College. It was the same thing. We went to Philly. It was the same thing. We went to South Jersey. It was the same thing. It was just an unbelievable time to exist socio-politically and in terms of the music scene, I think.
Yeah, that sounds spectacular. Like hearing you describe that, it's like when I would read like books about like the '80s DC hardcore scene, or
Hmm.
like the southern SoCal punk scene. Like I think of those times. It's just like such a enthusiasm for creating the music, and then people wanting to hear the music.
Oh
That's
yeah.
that's killer, dude. That's killer, dude.
And it's like, even when you talk about the DC hardcore scene, like I think about a documentary I watched called American Hardcore, with talked about Bad Brains, talked about Minor Threat, talked
Uh-huh.
about like that whole world. And then I just read a book from a guy named Dan Ozy. It's a book called Sellout,
Oh,
which
I'm reading
talks
that right
about like
now.
the main. There you go. There you go. It talks about that mainstream success of all of these bands that have been seminal, in our scene. What's what I really wish that people could see is like when you read that book and they're talking about Southern California for Blink, or they're talking about the Bay Area for Green Day. That was happening in a microcosm in every single city in the United States. And that was just so exciting to me. And I appreciated every second of it. Every show I remember, my wife got me a really cool container she made for me to put all my ticket stubs. I've kept every ticket stub from every show I've ever been to, but there was just something so special about that time. I wish I could just relive it again and not remember any of it. Just do it all again.
Yeah, that would make like an amazing like coffee table book, like all of the ticket stubs from all the different shows laid out. That would be super
Yeah.
cool. That's this is dude, this killer. You're blowing my mind right now. Okay, so you have this meeting with like your high school, is like you should get an associates, and then what happens next? What becomes the fuck you? I'm going to do this plan.
I think again, I come from a very academic family, but I'm actually half Indian. My name is Rishi Bahl, so
Hmm.
it's actually my dad's 100% Indian. He's from Africa, and my mom's from Pittsburgh.
Uh huh.
Which, if you see a picture of me, if you Google me, like I'm so white, like it's so crazy how white I am. Like
Hmm.
it's I have no sense of, I never got any of my dad's genes, but because of that whole kind of Indian culture, which is very academic, very, my
Yeah.
dad and family were very, you need to go to school, but I'll be honest, they were so supportive. Like I think
Hmm.
that the moment for me was whenever I graduated high school. I'm sitting on my desk right now. Actually, this is a great story. I have to grab it. I graduate this private high school. Everybody's a trust fund baby there. I'm kind of like the normal kid there. I graduated high school, and I remember my high school graduation. The Space Pimps had just started. I was really wanted to pursue music, and I didn't do great in high school. And my friends were getting like cars for graduation and like stupid shit that like is so dumb. My parents hand me a little gift bag, and in it is a paperweight. And at the time, I was mortified that all I got was a paperweight. But to this day, I'm holding it in my hand right now. It sits on my desk every day of my life. It says, "Success is not the position in which you stand, but the direction in which you look." And that
Whoa.
changed absolutely everything for me. It changed my perspective on it. I accepted that failure was okay. For years I was so scared to take a risk because I didn't want to fail. And what if the band, we had like sheltered the band in this little tiny Western Pennsylvania region where like we kicked ass and people loved us. But what if we went to DC and they hated us? And so at that point I was like, dude, like this is it. All through college, like I went to college, but like I spent a lot of time on the internet, like in college. We toured a ton. Things picked up. We got on Warped Tour on 3 or 4 different occasions under the Space Pimps. We signed to a label in Japan. We toured Japan. We toured China. We toured. I mean, shit. Just like it happened like the way that they describe how shit happens to bands that you have no idea it's coming. We
Uh-huh.
met with every single record label you could possibly think of, and thankfully we were very smart about it. We never signed to any of them,
Right.
but it just happened. It was this domino effect, and then you reach a point when you're 30, and you kind of want to reevaluate things, and that's what happened. We changed the band name and we rebranded it to fit, I think, our political and sociological needs. And we wouldn't want the word pimp in a name. That's just ridiculous. That's like a 17-year-old, 2001 17-year-old move. But
Right. Yeah.
so the big fuck you moment for me was that paperweight for my parents got, and I apply that to everything in my life. You can't be scared to take a risk, even if it means you fail 1,000 times, because there'll be one success that's in that thousand, and it'll be worth every second of it.
100%. Absolutely. And then you avoid living in what ifs, because that was been my biggest fear
Mm.
my entire life is living in what ifs. That's and the this it's almost like this idea that you can if luck is preparation meets opportunity, then you can create your own luck, and there's no you're you're sort of in control of your own destiny. You can like set the course.
Oh yeah.
That's beautiful, man. And you
Yeah,
said,
all because of my parents. All who would have thought? I'm going back today, and I'm quoting. I talk about that a lot in my class. I gave a commencement speech, and like I quoted that paperweight, and I just wish that I feel today that kids are very, and when I say kids, I mean like college students, like 18 to
sure,
21-year-old us. They're so risk averse, dude. They're
uh huh,
so risk averse. They need to be. They want to be put in a box and say, "How do I do this? Tell me what the directions are. What do I have to do?" It's like, that you need to be able to go into a forest with a set of toothpicks and a knife and build a palace, metaphorically speaking, of course. But
sure, yeah,
and I think that was my motivation. It was like it's okay to fail.
yeah. It is completely okay to fail, and it's okay to be wrong, and correct, and be like, oh, okay, well then I'll try this. Absolutely,
Right.
that's very important. That's very important advice. Is it's okay to fail. Uh, that's really really powerful. Tell me about touring Japan. This is every time a guest has toured Japan, I really like to talk about that because I love it over there. And I've heard that
Hell yeah.
the shows are just amazing. Who were you touring with over there?
So we went to Japan twice. The first time we did a festival there called At United. And again, man, I could go on for hours about Japan. I'm sure it sounds like you can too, but
Hmm.
it's just like a different world. But like the shows are just a different world. The vibe's a different world. I don't know how this originally happened. We got a MySpace message when we were called the Space Pimps from a label called Kick Rock Music. It ended up being
Uh-huh,
one of
I
the
know them.
biggest independent. Yeah, yeah, they had the whole Hopeless and Fearless catalog, and they signed us there. So we got there not knowing anything. They paid for our way there. They paid for everything, and we toured at the time. This was early. This was 2010, 2009. It was with the Swellers,
Hmm.
and it was with a band from California called Better Luck Next Time. That were, all due respect to them, they're homies. They're nobody in the United States. They are fucking huge in Japan. And then a band from the UK called Fastlane. Was the first time. The second time we played something called Shibuya Crash Festival. It was with H2O, Madball, um, man, Mad Caddies. It was a big festival. So we went there for like the festival stuff,
Hmm.
and it changed my life.
Did you play with like any of the bands from over there, like Secret Seven Line or High Standard?
You're kidding me. I can't believe you speak this language, dude. Yeah, we played with Secret Set. Dude, oh my God, God rest his soul. The bass player passed away actually 3 4 years ago in a van accident
Oh
when they were
no.
on tour. But we toured. Yeah, I know. We played with Secret Seven Line in Japan, and we toured the entire country of China with them in 2014.
Wow.
So that, yeah, Secret Seven Line, High Standard, Ellie Garden, Good for Nothing, all those bands were on Kick Rock Music. We played with a lot of them,
Hmm.
and through that, we actually became close with a band called Alistair, right, from Drive
Yes.
Thru,
Uh-huh.
and because Scotty moved to Alistair was like gigantic in Japan because this band called Ellie Garden took them on tour. Ellie Gardens was the Blink 182 of Japan, like
Yeah, I
stadiums, arenas.
hmm I love them. Tim turned me on to them, and I really love their stuff.
Oh, Tim from Alistair?
Yeah, yeah. He did the show a few years ago, and he told me about like because they became like best friends, and it was like he told me this really touching story about like when the tour was over and they were flying back home and like just like tearfully waving goodbye to each other at the airport. It was really beautiful story.
Dude, that happened to us too with the A&R guy. His name's Masa. Masa is like the big guy there with Kick Rock Music.
Uh
It's the
huh.
same thing. It's like such a the culture is so it's just so welcoming. It's just so I'm assuming you've been there.
Yeah, I've been to Japan twice. I went there. I was there on my 30th birthday for a couple weeks, and then a couple years ago, my wife, now wife, she became my fiance on this trip. We like went to a bunch
Ooh.
of different Southeast Asian countries like Taiwan, Thailand, Malaysia, and then we did a couple more days in Tokyo because why not?
Oh wow, yeah. So you get it. I mean, it's just like
I
the
totally
culture
get
there
it.
is very welcoming and warm, and it's but it's still first world, even though it like feels like you're in a different world, but yeah. I mean, Alistair was huge there, and then I don't know how like what the connection was, but I do remember like there was some Japan connection, and then I hit up Kyle when Alistair kind of called it quits. They started a band called The Get Go,
Mm-hmm.
which was Chris from Show Off, Nick from Mest, Kyle from Alistair, and Scotty from Alistair. And so we became homies with them. And then, the whole thing with Scotty happened with Rivers Cuomo and like the Japan thing, and like he got
Yeah.
huge. But Japan is a great place. Japan is just a different world. I remember the great story that I have is when we were there in 2013 or 14, Lagwagon was playing across the street. I'm making this up, the name of the venue, but it was like the Tokyo Civic Center, something huge,
Uh
holds like
huh.
3,000 people, right?
Right.
Sold out 3 nights in a row.
Wow.
Here in the United States, like I love Lagwagon's playing Four Chord, one of my favorite bands, but like they can't do that here. Obviously, it's a different world. Though I do think that
Mm-hmm.
Japan is kind of catching up. It was always the joke was it's 10 years behind, but it feels like
Mm-hmm.
it's now like even playing field musically today than it was then.
I am inclined to agree with you because I listen to like lots of the pop punk bands that are in Japan now, and not they're a lot of them are there's a lot of bands that are doing like what a sound that I really like and I think you would really like from that early
Hmm.
2000s, and then there's this whole like kind of like super crazy like technical math rock side of Japanese rock music. Ska I know is super huge in Japan. Um,
Hmm.
it's there is some exciting stuff. We're gonna have to talk more about this. I've got some playlists that are coming your way. Um,
Oh,
do you
please.
do you know Scotty's band Mono Eyes?
Oh my gosh, the Mono Eyes are former Ellie Garden. Yeah, I like them a lot. I too have a long Spotify playlist with four Mono Eyes songs on it.
Okay, I'm gonna need that as well. This is
Hell yeah,
very very cool. And if you talk to Scott, give him. I'll send you my email. I would love to talk to him because
hell yeah.
Alistair, uh, like, and I told Tim like they were like one of those seminal bands. I think they were maybe like the first or second Drive Thru Records album I ever bought.
Wow, Last Stop Suburbia.
Was Last Stop Suburbia. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, record's amazing.
Yeah, so it's so good. Sounds good. Still holds up after all this time. I love it. So man, so you did like so you guys like did some like super crazy heavy extensive touring. Like this is all like in your college years.
No, we do. So we've been very strategic about touring. I think that, I believe that, you can be a successful band at our level and not have to play 200 shows a year.
Uh
So
huh.
we've been very selective on like in terms, not selective. I mean, we play on average non-pandemic. I mean, even now we play 30 to 40, 50 shows a year.
Mm-hmm.
But we did Japan when I was in college the first time. Then we did it when I was in grad school the second time in 2013, 14. And then that same year we did Japan, we did China. Though we didn't
Okay.
go to Japan, then China. We flew home and then went back later in the year. And
Right.
then we played China again in 2015. And then over the last, I would say 2016, 17, 18, 19, we've been going to Europe every year to build that market next. It's just too
Nice.
hard to get back to Japan and China to like make it a viable market. It's just too difficult to like the touring is too difficult. Particularly, it is very difficult to tour in China. It is very difficult to tour in China. That was one of the hardest
Mm-hmm.
touring moments I think I've ever had in my life. Is going being a lifelong vegetarian too. There I have a million examples with like food and like dogs and all sorts of fucked up shit that happened in China. But
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, so we tour internationally probably at one international place we try to every year, and then domestically we do our
Gotcha.
same thing in Canada.
Very, very, very cool. That sounds like the way to do it. Like the because you also, in addition to the festival, you're a college professor. That seems like the way to you can sort of like have it all. And that for the longest time I thought was not a possibility when I was like 23, 24. But
Me
like
too.
this is now like the healthy way to do it almost. I think that way like you're not ever having to like put too much pressure on like one aspect of your life to for like a livelihood point of view, um, or like a personal fulfillment point of view. Like you're a well-rounded person.
Oh, I agree completely. I thought I remember like being in college and like, I mean there were times, when I was 18 through 25, 24. I mean, dude, there was a year we played 140, I mean tons and tons of shows. And I remember coming back to that always being like, well, we're broke. I mean, at least I got college to go back to. The shows were awesome. It was basically like a super long fun vacation. And I
Yeah.
just always for years tried to think about like what is a viable way to do this? Where we don't have to rely on a label because like I said, and that's a whole other story is these close calls with these labels and like how awfully weighted these contracts were and just like I always wanted a way where I could appease all of my satiate all of my desires and I think that I've thankfully been able to do that. Now of course people argue, a lot of my friends that are in bands are like, well dude, if you guys took the plunge you would have been bigger. Maybe, but I also
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be the person and where I am today. So
No, that's totally, and that's leads into what I also want to ask. You said like you met with all these record labels, but very smartly didn't sign with them. And I wanted to ask why that was the case. Is it a matter of like you looked at the deal and it was like not beneficial to you, or you didn't want to end up in a situation where like you end up like recording an album and then they just sit on it and never put it out, and you can't get it back from them, like a
well,
situation
we
like
were
that?
always ready to. Yeah, we were always ready to. I mean, the goal has always been like to sign. When you're younger, you sign a label, and I just think that the con when you're young, and we were. This happened between. I mean, this happened as recently as probably when we changed the band name in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Where we also had a very big close call with a large independent record label. And at the end of the day, it's like you lose a lot of control. And not that I'm a complete control freak, but I certainly like, being able to choose what gear we're going to be in. And the contracts were just non-negotiable in many tokens, which said to me, they really didn't want us.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see a lot of these, the bands that really get the deals they want. It's far and few between. But I think at the end of the day, the deals were just very awful, and I kept asking myself, what could they do that I can't do? And at the end of the day,
Right.
my conclusion upwards of 2017 was that all record labels are in 2022 is a marketing agency. They're a marketing agency. There's no distribution barriers to entry. There's no barriers to entry other than touring access, access to capital, and access to marketing. So that's when in 2017, after we had that fallout with this label we were talking to, I started my own label. And in 2017, I started Four Chord Music, the label,
Mm-hmm.
and signed at that time four bands, including releasing Eternal Boy's record.
Yep.
And dude, the first record I released, the Eternal Boy record, we charted on 6 of the Billboard Top 100 charts. So, it goes to show once again that the direction that you look and you put your head down, you do good work, you figure out, you grind through it, and maybe there's more to it than having to abide to a record label and sign your life away.
No, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Because nowadays, like if you're an independent band, and I know this from experience, it's not too outside the realm of possibility to put together some money, record some stuff at home. Maybe you do drums somewhere else, and then put it out, and then that becomes the next thing is marketing and getting it in front of people that are going to dig it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. I think it's hard. I saw Mark Hoppus on one of his Twitch streams was talking about this. It's like it's much harder and easier to be in a band today. It's harder in the sense that there is so much more white noise because of that mentality, right? I can record something at home, I can get it out there, and there's this emphasis of just getting it out there. And they think that like it'll happen the way it happened to Mac Miller on SoundCloud, or it'll happen the way that it just happened to a band called Games We Play on TikTok, signed and fueled by Ramen, all in a
Hmm.
span of 2 months of going viral on TikTok. Those are still far and few between. Those are the bands from early 2000s that end up signing to a major label. They were far and few between them, and they're far and few between now. It's just,
Hmm.
I think there needs to be a deliberate focus on creating something cool. And cool comes in many fashions. Geez, this guy Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, he's like he owns Vaynerchuk Media, who's one of the biggest media icons now. He was a wine owner in New Jersey. He loved wine. He got a webcam. He put it on the internet, and before he knew it, he did everything he wanted to do. I mean, putting yourself out there in a strategically um, enlightened position where you
Hmm.
understand what your niche is the most important part. A lot of people say it takes the fun away, but it actually makes it more fun for me to think of it that way.
No, I'm coming around to that as well. The like the being smart about it kind of way is what is something you would tell like a younger band nowadays that's like going out doing their own things from the point of perspective of someone who books bands and also books and owns a record label. What is like some boilerplate advice you could give like the kids today?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of growing to do, so I would never ever be presumptuous to say that my opinion matters. I think that there's a multiplicity of opinions that matter, and I'm just grinding. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
grinder. But if I had a child, or there was somebody that was 17, 16 years old, and they were like, oh, I want to be in a band, and we want to succeed, and they had good songs. I think the um, first and foremost, and this goes back to an email exchange I had with John Feldman when I was 19,
Uh-huh.
when I was trying to get him to produce my band, which obviously didn't work. He said, number one, first and foremost, your songs have to kick ass. And
Yeah.
again, that is subjective to some degree, but I think that there is a general consensus when you hear a record or a song and know if it pops. Whether you like it or not is subjective, but whether it pops or not is less subjective. So the songs have to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, and maybe this should be number one, and it gets lost on it when we talk about strategy and branding and marketing. You have to have a great time. I mean, I wouldn't be doing
Mm-hmm.
this at 35 if I didn't think that this like I can't live without it, as I'm sure you can empathize with as well.
Yeah.
Um, I just think that the having fun part is so. But third after that is don't shortchange your recording quality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's vitally important. That I think that a lot of people. That's not to say you can't do a great home recording. There's something about going into a studio with a producer that says this sucks, that's awesome. This sucks, that's awesome. It's a humbling experience. It pushes you to be a better musician, and it makes you see a side of your songs that you didn't know existed. So I think that it's important to go in at some point, not right away,
Mm-hmm.
to with a producer that can tell you those things.
Yeah, that's going to be my next step is to do that because think that having that outside perspective and that sort of like what's the phrase I'm looking for that that's sort of like blunt honesty is very is very helpful because I've definitely creatively like gone over and over a bunch of stuff to ad infinitum before so having that outside voice, I think, is going to be beneficial to for my personal next step, and so I think that's really stellar advice. And now in the midst
Yeah.
of this of the touring and college, how do you become a professor? What was
Oh
that?
man, you're
What
asking
was
the.
that process?
So I think that honest to God, I wish I had like a really good story behind it, but I didn't want to be a medical doctor and follow in the footsteps of my family. Though getting older, I've picked up so much medical insight. It's just like unbelievable. Maybe I should have, but
Uh huh.
um, so my sister was really influential on me. My sister's older than me, and
Mm-hmm.
she got into the local punk scene in Pittsburgh before I did. even before it was punk. It was like this, like, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm trying to think of bands from that era, but it was like Silverchair and like
Uh-huh.
Bush and like No Doubt before they were Tragic Kingdom, like that world that kind of bridged the pop punk world. She
Mm-hmm.
got into that real. So I always admired my sister's like musical taste early on, and then she ultimately decided not to do the doctor thing, and she got her PhD. So I was thinking to myself, what can I do that's like going to lend itself for me to be able to do everything I want to do with my life, right? I want to own a label, I want to tour, I want to write songs, I want to record, I want to do
Yeah.
festival. Being a doctor is not going to do that. Um, working at a marketing firm, I had right when I had finished my master's degree, I applied and got hired at Google when it opened up in Pittsburgh, and I said no
Uh-huh.
to working at Google. My parents thought I was a moron for that as well. But and then so at that point I was like, well, I have my master's degree. Why don't I just continue to go to school? I'm still in a band. I'm still doing that. I was 26 when I started it. And so I just got my PhD at University here in Pittsburgh. I did my undergrad and master's at Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, and then I did my PhD at a smaller institution here called Duquesne University. And
Mm-hmm.
got it, and then that was a grind in itself. It's 3 years of coursework, and then you have comprehensive exams, and then you have to write your dissertation. And so I completed that in 2018. I finished it. I started the whole thing in 2014. I finished it in 2018, and then I got hired as a college professor here in Pittsburgh at a small liberal arts school north of Pittsburgh called LaRoche University. Great spot.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I basically, I'm a marketing professor, so I do research in marketing, specifically in analytics mostly, and also in neuromarketing. And then I also teach 2 to 3 classes a semester here at the university, and I'm off, basically 5.5 months a year. So it lends itself to having a steady, great paid job where you're around young people and you understand and kind of can help grow young people. It's
Mm-hmm.
very fulfilling. It's a lot like being in a band, in my opinion. And then, I also get to do the band thing and the festival thing. I honestly have to pinch myself sometimes, Will. Like I have to pinch myself sometimes that like it happened the way it did. Now, could have we taken a risk and been, huge? Maybe, but I just feel so fulfilled in every part of my life. I just don't know what I did to deserve it. I don't know what I did to deserve it, but it's a very, very fulfilling life that I have right now.
That's spectacular, man. And you're doing amazing stuff in all factors. Like you're because and I also have found like, working with the young kids like keeps you like from becoming the old man shouting at the cloud. Kind of trope. That's what I found when it comes to like learning what's cool. It's like, oh, I'm just glad. Well, first off, like when it comes to like TikTok rappers and like the offshoots of Machine Gun Kelly and everybody he's influenced, I'm just glad that they're young kids that think guitar music is cool. That and think this
Amen.
stuff is cool. So I'm happy that I'm happy that there aren't because like people my age, if I tell them my favorite band is like Blink or I love pop punk, sometimes they're just like still, and I'm like,
Oh my
no,
God,
no,
dude.
you don't
Oh
understand. You don't
yeah.
understand. Um,
Yeah, says the person that's in a dead end job that went to college, did exactly what they were supposed to do. Like it's like if you have no passion outside of that, I mean, you're really just existing. You're lukewarm as you can be. And I always tell people my biggest fear in life, right? It's not dying. Well, dying sounds scary, but not that I want to. But like the scariest thing that somebody could tell me is that whenever they say, oh, what do you think about Rishi? They're like, oh, he's okay. I want you to love me or I want you to fucking hate me. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
I want to make you feel something. I don't want to just exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to be frozen yogurt. Like if you ever watched The Good Place, frozen yogurt. It's like
The good place.
it's just fine. It's just fine. No, yeah, like because that way you're doing something, whether people love it or hate it. Because and I've
I
often
agree.
found like for the longest time I felt like uh, somebody hating something you put out would be a bad thing. But if they hate it for the right reasons, that means someone else will find a reason to like it.
100%. And you can learn from that hate, I mean, you're not going to change your style because somebody that likes Machine Gun Kelly doesn't like Eternal Boy, doesn't like Bright Ugly. But,
Hmm.
at the bottom line is that it makes them feel something. And, if it's constructive, you take it. And if it's bullshit, you make fun of them.
Exactly. Just incorporate all the good and deal with discard all of the trash. Uh,
Exactly.
that's awesome. And I don't know how anybody is not gonna like Eternal Boy, because I've already sent the new album to a ton of friends, and because it is, and like we were saying earlier, not only is the production amazing, but like the songs, like the songs are just so good. Like they got hooks for days. Like there's just like the words and melodies just like there are like tiny little fish hooks just like grabbing into my heart and pulling out that kid I was, that I
Oh.
never stopped being, and just really just shaking him loose. And it's like, hell yeah. Like there's that feeling you get like when you discover a great new thing that you really enjoy, and there's kind of a rush to that, and that's how I feel listening to this new record,
Oh
man.
well, listen. You made my month, man. I mean, that makes me feel so good. I mean, and you just brought up something too that I've been thinking a lot about, and as we're writing, thinking about going and recording a new EP here, that there's a theme that is really really catching with me. That you are one of the only people that has said it voluntarily without me saying it first and agreeing, and it's this concept of getting older. And I've been thinking about this a lot. Obviously, like in our 30s, it's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel old. I feel like I don't look old, but I do know that like there's a group of people now that were born in like 2005, which is fucking crazy to think about.
Right.
Um, but the thing that like I'm not necessarily bummed about getting older. I'm bummed about not discovering that new thing and getting that new feeling because we have experienced so much and have an opinion about everything that like first time, like remember the first time you got in your car when you got your driver's license? You remember
Uh-huh.
the first time you heard "What's My Age Again," or you heard "Hit or Miss"
Yes.
by Newfound. It's like the first kiss that you got, or the first time you crowd surfed. It's like those feelings to me. I capture in a bottle and I relive. But the problem is that it's very hard to re-experience that today, right? Maybe jumping out of a plane and bungee jumping, I'll get that experience. But
Mm-hmm.
the way that I get it is through writing a song and recording it, or putting out four chord and doing it hard. Like those feelings are just so hard, and I hope that as we get older, those feelings don't go away.
No, I think for folks like you and me, I don't think that ever can, because there's a certain level of passion for what we're into that never really gonna ever die. That same
Mhm.
thrill, I don't think that ever stops. I know exactly the kind of feeling that you're describing, though, because I remember I remember listening to Now That's What I Call Music Volume 3. I bought it for All Star by Smash Mouth, but then when I started listening to the rest of it, it was like, oh, Blink 182. And I heard that dun 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 dun, and I was like, what is this sound? I need to learn how you make these sounds. Electric guitar, okay, mom, I need one of those. Uh, and then I remember playing my first high school band, uh, playing like our talent show, and I'm sure I don't know if your band has ever done this, but my
Yes.
one of my favorite one of my favorite traditions in pop punk is to pop punkify a song that's not punk.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And my friends that I was playing with at the time had this rock version of My Girl by the Temptations that never not brought the house down. So we played this at my high school. All of our friends rush to the front of the stage in the auditorium and start jumping up and down while the administrators are going crazy. So I get to like totally disrupt the show. And then I kissed a girl for the first time after the show. And then I got home and got my acceptance letter for Towson University all in one day.
Whoa, dude, talk about a sensory overload.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was like the day and time that set me on the same path that I walk today and leads me to like talking to you now.
What do
Um,
you do? What do you do outside of this? Out of the band, outside of the podcast?
my day job's in podcasting. I work for a big podcasting app.
Very cool.
Yeah, and so like literally my day is now filled with stuff that I love doing. My evenings are filled with stuff I love doing, and then my wife's pretty cool too. So I get to spend a lot of time with her. Anything great that's happened to me since I've met her is because I finally listened to smart things that she said. Just like to make sure I just like to make sure I give her credit on the show for others to hear.
Well, I guess I should also give credit to my wife too. It's the same way, same description, same thing. Super supportive. I mean, like, I don't. I sometimes I don't- when I go up to her, I'm like, hey, I'm going to spend X amount of money on this festival, that 99 out of 100 people would be like, dude, like, no, that's no. She's like, that sounds so awesome. I mean, like, it's just
Hmm.
the people around you just become so important as you get older about support. And I have an unbelievable support system. My best friend from high school became a lawyer. He does all of the contract work for the festival for free. He does all the contract work for the band for free. It's just like people like that, like you could learn to appreciate even more as you get older, because when you're younger, it's like everybody wants to come see you play. Oh, you're young, you're 18, like, oh my God, they're in a band, that's so cool. Then you
Hmm.
get like 35 and they're like, dude, I've seen you for the last 14 years. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And
Hmm.
that's so it's I appreciate that as well. But that night sounds magical for you. Can we just go back and relive that night that you experienced in high school?
I know that's like it was like my closest to having like a teen movie, like or 80s movie, like crazy night, because that's not that many awesome moments don't happen that quickly
Oh
usually.
my God.
Uh,
It's like I can't hardly wait all over again, or 10 things I hate about you.
oh my God, 100%, 100%. It was the moment where I was like everything just kind of clicked for the first time. I was like, all right, I'm gonna chase this and creating this moment over and over again for forever, because it was the first time, because I played team sports, was not into team sports as a kid, and it was the time I found something I was like really passionate about. And I was a
Hmm.
high school theater kid too, so like I was excited to stay after school and build sets. I was excited to come build sets on the weekends. I was excited to have like figure out how to get my friends to my house so we could play and all that stuff. Load Driving my dad's pickup truck in the snow and like getting snow off of the base cabinet at the afterwards. Like all of that stuff was like joyful. The work became joyful, and I was excited to have found joyful work.
Oh my God. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. Even now, like when you go through lineup changes, and we've recently gone through a lineup change, like that, you have to love that grind, like the grind of just like the practice, the gear upkeep, and like I think for me it's like I can find joy in that grind. Like, I think that it's like the joke with my band is that like I do all the van driving for the most part, and we do a lot of like trying to save money here. So like we'll play, like a show in Long Island, and then we'll drive overnight back home so we don't, pay for the hotel room or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even though we're adults and can afford it and it's no big deal, but like I live for that, dude. Like even now, like the thought of it, like it's such a because when you get home and you put your head on the pillow, it's like, dude, 6 hours ago we were in Long Island and now we're back home in Pittsburgh. It's there's something about that again, that doing it yourself, starting from scratch, looking back, it's like I'm gonna remember that when if I make it to 80. The
Mm-hmm.
car rides and the sleeping on floors and sleeping in deserts and sleeping in airports. It's like that's the shit that I'm gonna remember. Building a set, at your high school. I mean, all that stuff's just so important in the narrative of you. I think it's so important.
100%. And your narrative is going to have like so many awesome things outside of just your great band and these kids, I say college students that you're working with. And then the big thing, which is coming up, that I want to make sure we plug appropriately here at the end, the Four Chord Music Festival. Which iteration of Four Chord is this?
This is number 8.
This is number 8. And I think for the lineup, you basically went through my iPod and picked some of my favorite bands for this lineup, because uh, the first night is September 9th, and it's Bad Religion, Descendants, and Pennywise, along with like Lagwagon, H2O, Don't Panic. Great. I love Ted. Uh,
Ted, great guy.
I am the Avalanche of the Bomb Pops, and then let's go through. And then the second night, September 10th, I would love to let's go through this night, because this is again like some of my all time favorites are on this night,
Nice.
which is
Oh, you
all.
want me to? Oh, you want me to go over it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we have Alistair and Patent Pending, who I saw for the first time in an armory in my tiny town in Maryland, and have been a fan ever since. And then who else do we have on this lineup? All Time Low, Jimmy Eat
We have
World.
Jimmy World, story so far, the starting line, the main, Mom Jeans, Eternal Boy, Patent Pending, Sharia Moore, a Maryland-ish band. Um, oh, and there's some homies from like Pittsburgh that are on there. My best friend One of my best friends' name's Josh. He's in a band called Lookout Loretta. But yeah, there's still one. That's the reason I stuttered, is because I almost just gave the question mark band that I'm announcing next week that I'm contractually obligated not to announce yet. So I
Oh,
almost just
there's a.
fucked that up.
Oh, well, I'm glad we didn't do that, but that's exciting. That so there's one more band that still to announce. That's very cool.
Yeah, July 20th. That's going to be announced.
Amazing. And where can people go if they want to get tickets for Four Chord?
Four Chord Music Festival or fourchordmusicfest.com. Yeah, it's quite a biggie this year. But again, we're up against a lot of odds with all the festivals and all the big corporations doing festivals. We are 100% independent. When I say we, I mean me. It is only me. It is the
Mm-hmm.
graphic design, it is the talent buying, it is the merch design, it is the logistics, it's the layout, it's the production riders, the hospitality riders, the insurance, the COVID testing. Last year we had COVID testing right at the gate for every person. I mean, it has grown into a. I mean, I'm speechless at times that it is what it is, But it's a full time job. It's a full time job for sure.
Yeah, and especially like given the pandemic and everything, with especially with these new BA4 and 5 variants coming through, I can just
Right.
imagine the amount of again, the amount of hair that must be coming out every single day on this. But if anyone is
Correct.
listening to this and has been like, oh holy shit, these guys have great taste in music, you will have a great time at Four Chord Music Fest. So get tickets. And I also want to plug, so Eternal Boy's new album, Bad Days Are Over, is out everywhere. Get your music. Anything else we can plug, Rishi, before we get out of here?
No, just I want to thank you for having me. I mean, this is very I feel like if you lived in Pittsburgh, we would be total homies. I mean, it's just very nice to think back about where we were and what the scene was like and how it developed and how it retrenched at times and how it it was very important time to me. So I appreciate you having me on here. I listened to a bunch of the podcasts, and I mean, you do a great job, and I can't wait to check out your band, and I can't wait to maybe catch your comedy at some point.
Absolutely, man. Well, I will. If you're ever in New York, you let me know, and if we're ever rolling through Pittsburgh, I will, of course, let you know for sure. And this is, I've got some. We're gonna exchange some music after this, so I've really enjoyed getting to chat with you and getting to talk with you today. Thank you so much for doing the show, man.
Thanks so much, Will.
Guy's got a lot of wisdom, and I've learned a lot from just that our first conversation. So, Rishi, thank you so much for your time and for your consideration. There's a lot of important and useful information for I think that can be applied to a wide array of creative pursuits, and the idea of building something from scratch is something that I personally relate to a lot. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. That is our show. If you enjoyed this and think you know a friend who would be interested in this podcast as well, you can send them to awesomedisaster.com. That has links to over 200 oh my gosh, I think we're at like over 250, 60 something episodes at this point. But there's a lot of great chats. I've talked to people. I've talked to Jared Reddick from Bowling for Soup, Nick from Hit the Lights, Mitch Allen from SR71, Tom Rhodes, Glenn Wool. I've had some very cool guests on this show, and there are links for the show on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can also find links to all my social media. I am at WillCarey23 on Instagram. I'm at Comic Will Carey on Twitter. And if you guys want to take another step to support the show a little bit further, there is links to our merch shop, as well as the Patreon, which is patreon.com/awesomedisaster. If you want to support the show a little bit further, I got some cool stuff on both of those sites as well. Again, everything is at awesomedisaster.com. And even with the new subvariants BA4 and BA5 that intend to wreck more people with COVID this year, I hope you guys continue to maintain some cautious optimism, make some good decisions, and find some joy, some joyful work, and even just some joyful rest, because you are worth it, and you deserve it. because we're all fighting the good fight, and we will continue to have to until we're all on the other side of these many things: pandemic, political strife, a lot to get through. So thank you guys so much for being here with me, and I'll see you folks next time between awesome and disaster. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaxxed, get boosted, and stomp out fascism. Take care, everybody.